Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Nerd Ledger random episode this week. Well, we'll do a normal episode this week as well. Probably, if I release it this week. Who knows? Just ignore everything I'm saying. Okay, this is the Nerd Ledger. I'm Cage. I'm running solo today because I did a thing, and that thing was watching Morbius and Madam Web. I figure if I'm going to continuously slam Sony's Spider-Man universe, that I should watch some of the movies. I've watched, of course, the first two Venom movies. I've also, well, that's it. I will watch Venom 3 and Craven at some point when they're on streaming for free. But I've watched the Venom movies, and my complaints about the Venom verse slash Sony Spider-Man universe have always been the same. And it's the way that they play this weird coyness about Spider-Man, and then, he's just not in the movies, and they expect people to care, and I think people just really don't care. And I don't blame people for not caring. So, essentially, for anybody who doesn't know, the CEO, who was on his way out at the time when he was leaving, spoke about the Venomverse movies and how essentially they were dead on arrival because even though, in his mind, they're very good movies, the media and critics butchered them and nobody had any interest to go see them, and that's why those movies failed, and that's the only reason why. In addition, Sony also discussed how they never were told they couldn't use Spider-Man. They never had any limits on using Spider-Man. I mean, they own the rights to the character. It's not in their, but pretty much they were saying it's not in their deal with Marvel when they let Marvel use Spider-Man. It's not in their deal that says they then can't use Spider-Man. They could have used him at any moment, and they didn't. The success of the first Venom movie, which made over $800 million, gave them this false sense of security and belief that they could make a movie about any of Spider-Man's villains without Spider-Man being in it, and people would care. Anyone could have told you that's ridiculous, anyone who's a Spider-Man fan at least, because, Jesus. I mean, and you kind of, even without this news, you could have seen this coming. You could have probably understood that that's what they were trying to do anyway, and that was their belief when they were throwing out titles like Silver Sable and Black Cat and Jackpot and all these other characters that they wanted to make movies of, or then it was supposed to be TV shows, and none of it ever happened because, I don't know, people just weren't interested. Sony's most successful Spider-Man, or most successful movies in the last 7 years, since they've been doing the Venom movies, have been the Spider-Verse movies, really. I mean, the first Venom was very successful financially, but the Spider-Verse movies are unequivocally the best movies they've done, and that is because Spider-Man's in it. Like, I just don't get their thought process. But as the Sony Spider-Man universe is dying its painful death at the moment, I figured, well, I should be more educated on these movies that critics have butchered, called Morbius and Madam Web, that apparently aren't that bad of movies, and so I decided to watch them. I was going to watch them a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and Madam Web was on Netflix, but Morbius I couldn't find anywhere. And then I found it was on Disney Plus recently. So I did watch Madam Web first, even though Morbius came out first. So I'll talk about it first. Now, a couple things. First of all, there's plenty of reasons why this movie failed, both critically, financially, and in reviews from fans. And one of those reasons is because unless you really love comic books and Spider-Man, you've probably never heard of Madam Web before. Like, if they're trying to attract the Marvel crowd, the MCU crowd, you're not going to do it with Madam Web. You'll get some of them, because there are some of them, like me, who know these characters. You'll get some of the people who watched the Amazing Spider-Man animated show as a kid and is familiar with Madam Web from there. You'll get more recent comic book fans who are more familiar with the Web of Destiny and things like that from Spider-Verse that might have been interested in some way, shape, or form. But ultimately, what you'll get is people. Well, you really won't get much of anyone, to be honest. So if you're a comic book fan and you saw this movie, there's probably a couple things that annoyed you. First of all, Uncle Ben Parker, being like besties for the resties and coworkers with Cassandra Webb, aka Madam Web. You're probably irritated that Peter Parker is in the belly of his mother at this point. It's just convenient how small this world is, right? That Cassandra Webb, who will eventually become Madam Web, is besties for the resties with Uncle Ben, and Peter Parker is gonna be born at some point, like in this movie, which is like Sony's way of saying, "Hey, look, guys, we did put Spider-Man / Peter Parker in one of these films." It's just stupid. It's not a real complaint for me. Like I don't really care. It's just it makes your universe feel way smaller, and it's kind of a slap in the face to some fans, I think. But it is what it is. And then you have your marketing for this movie, which really pushes these girls, these Spider Girls, right? We have what's her face, Sydney Sweeney playing Julia Carpenter. She didn't use Carpenter in this movie. It's Julia whatever. One of the other versions of Arachna, aka one of the versions of Spider Girl. We see her in a costume all through the trailer. We see the other Spider Girls as well, and none of that is even relevant to the movie that much. Like, sure, it's central to the plot that they will eventually become those Spider Girls, because essentially, right? Okay. Anyway, spoiler warning. You don't care because you're not going to watch the movie, and if you are, you don't really care about being spoiled because everybody says it's garbage. Anyway, so essentially, the plot of this movie, again, small world, is yes. Madam Web, or Cassandra Webb's mom, is in the rainforest in Peru in the Amazon, looking for spiders that have healing properties, or can help, with diseases or whatever. And her bodyguard is Ezekiel Sims, who, once she finds a spider, shoots her while she's pregnant with Cassandra, and takes the spider from her. She then gets taken in by these spider people who try to save her with a spider bite. It doesn't work, but it saves her kid. She dies. Cassandra goes into foster care. Ezekiel Sims has these recurring nightmare visions where he sees the Spider Girls in the future killing him. And so instead of letting that happen, he ends up murdering an NSA lady after fucking her, stealing her privileges, hiring somebody to be able to track down these girls that he sees in his dreams, girls that are wearing masks, but clearly the masks don't fucking work because there's no, like, we could see in the trailer, there's no eye coverings, there's no anything, there's nothing hiding their identities, so that's also stupid. So he uses this NSA technology to track down these girls. Meanwhile, Cassandra is going through it. She's struggling with life and whatever. She's an EMT. She ends up falling into the river, and supposedly drowning. But while she's drowning, she sees the Web of Destiny, or more or less, gets brought back to life, and then starts having these visions. Before all that happens, she crossed paths with every single one of those girls, just by chance. One of them lives in her apartment building. One of them runs in front of her ambulance and flips her off, and the other one, she saved her stepmother. So, convenient. And then, yes, she starts having these visions as well, where she's kind of reliving moments. There's no real rhyme or reason to how this happens, because, again, most of the things in this movie feel like they happen just because the plot needs them to. And so the way her powers manifest is another one of those things. Yes, she gets these powers, and she starts to see. She just conveniently ends up on a train as well with all three girls and sees this, relives these moments of Ezekiel Sims coming in and murdering them one at a time. So she starts rounding them up, and Ezekiel does show up. He's quick, he's powerful, but he can't do anything apparently. Like, no matter how close he gets to them, he just seems to be way more concerned with everything else other than killing these girls that he thinks are going to kill him in the future and every occasion that they meet up. So he ends up, just being pretty fucking useless. And we get kind of this deeper story here where all these girls are struggling. They don't really have good parental figures in their lives. One of them, their dad got deported back to Mexico. That was all she had. Another one, she's like rich and her parents don't care about her or something. Like she's being raised by her nannies or maids or whatever. And then the third one, she is running. I don't remember Sydney Sweeney's character. I don't remember what her problem with her family was because I just don't care that much. Yeah, and then obviously Cassandra, whose mother died while she gave birth to her. And so she resents her mother because she thinks her mom was selfish and like brought her, while she was about to give birth, she took her down into, just so she can study some spiders in the Amazon. Later she learns that her mother, or that she had some kind of disease in utero, and her mom was there looking for a cure to save her, and that makes it all better. And then at the end, she's gonna save these girls, and they're gonna escape Ezekiel. Who, okay, here's the stupidest shit, right? One of the dumbest moments of the movie is Cassandra goes to Peru, to the Amazon, to discover some secrets, right, of these spider people. And so she's going to be gone for a week, and while she's gone, the three girls are going to be in hiding, staying with Ben Parker and his sister, who's pregnant with Peter Parker. And Ezekiel's like, it's been a week and we haven't seen a sight of them, right? Meaning, like, it's been a week. She's on her way back, and these girls have been at Ben's in hiding, doing nothing, like they should. And then Peter wants to be born, and so the water breaks, and Ben's like, all right, we got to rush to the hospital, and all the girls get in the car. What the fuck are they going to the fucking hospital? Stay at the fucking house, dumb fucks. Like, what? This guy is searching for you, and he has ways of finding you. You're supposed to stay low key and hidden, and you don't. You decide to go, I'm going to put on a hood, and all of a sudden nobody's going to fucking be able to spot me. So that's how they get found, and then Cassandra has to come and try to save them, and of course her power is manifest in a completely different way, and she can, see stuff flying right in front of them and pull them out of the way and whatever. Ezekiel just kind of dies because of falling debris. He's really useless. It's kind of like they could have done a lot of things better. Of course, the theme here is like architect of his own downfall, evil destroys evil kind of thing. It's executed really poorly. The moments with Cassandra talking about her mom and the other kids talking about their parents, they're not executed in the way to make you really care. Like that could have been a thing that was successful. It just wasn't. At best, this movie is boring. At worst, it's a waste of time. Both of those things are true. I think it is a pretty boring movie. There's a couple cool moments, but nothing that makes me excited. Nothing that would ever make me want to watch it again. And nothing that gets you excited for the future of Sony's Marvel Universe. So there's that. And then I watched Morbius. And Morbius wasn't nearly as drab and dreary and boring as Madam Web was. It wasn't good. It wasn't great. There are very cool moments in the movie. There, some of the effects are pretty cool. Some of them feel a little odd or rushed, but I like the smoky kind of, representation of Morbius's movements and existence. I think Jared Leto was pretty good. Matt Smith is a favorite of mine, and I love Matt Smith. He's being Matt Smith. There's one real standout scene in the movie, and there's one scene that people talk about frequently from the movie. The one scene people talk about a lot that I've seen online is the scene of Matt Smith dancing, and I don't know if people are mad or trolling or just saying, "Oh, this is dog shit. Look at this character's just dancing." I don't mind it because it works for his character, right? So if you watch the movie, Morbius, Michael Morbius, and his friend Milo, aka Lucian, aka Milo, they both have this disease that's slowly killing them. Their blood doesn't clean itself. Pretty much, they have to get blood transfusions frequently to just be able to survive. Like, they're dying. They can't really walk without support, and all this stuff. And so, Michael Morbius, he's looking for a cure, a way to fix it. He goes and takes these vampire bats from, it's in South America as well. I don't remember the country. But he gets these vampire bats, and they go back to his lab, and he's like this brilliant scientist. We see this stuff from his childhood, which it doesn't really matter, but essentially this kid Lucian comes in, and Michael starts talking to him. Michael calls him Milo, and he's like, "My name's not or he's like, "Who's Milo?" He's like, "You're Milo, and the person who was here before you was Milo." And pretty much everybody who comes in is Milo, because the first original roommate of Michael Morbius was Milo, and so now everybody's Milo, and I'm assuming all those other Milos died. This Milo doesn't die. He becomes a very successful rich person, and he starts funding Morbius's research, and so Morbius asks him, "Hey, can you put me out on this boat so I can do these experiments to try to cure us?" And whatever, and he does, and then he hires a bunch of mercenaries to protect him, and essentially it works. And Morbius he gets healed, but he has to live on artificial blood that stops working after so much time. So eventually he's going to need human blood. And Milo steals some of the serum and injects himself, and he's able to move and walk and feel strong after his whole life being weak and being unable to move. So when he's dancing, who wouldn't dance in those moments, right? Who wouldn't dance because you feel alive and you can finally do stuff you've never done before? I don't mind that. The movie's just not that strong of a movie. There are, like I said, some pretty good scenes. The biggest standout scene for me is the scene in the hospital, where it doesn't work realistically in my mind. Maybe it does. I don't know how hospitals work, but I imagine no matter what time of night it is, there are lights on in hospitals. They're not all motion censored lights. But in this scene, all the lights in the hospital are motion censored. So you see the nurse walking down, right, and it's light and dark in the background, dark in front of her, and as she keeps moving, the lights will go off and on depending on where she is. And I think it's a really creative scene, the way it's shot. It's very horror movie-esque, and she does eventually get killed. Not by Morbius, but by Milo. But at the time, everybody suspects it's Morbius. I was like, no, it's clearly not Morbius. But yes. Yeah. I like that scene. I also like, when he first becomes the vampire version of Morbius, I like the visual effects. I like the special effects. I like the practical effects of it, for the makeup and stuff. I thought it worked pretty well. Ultimately, the climax of the movie isn't that great. Yes, they're gonna fight. Milo kidnaps the love interest, who is also a doctor, Dr. Bancroft. He tries to kill her, kind of. She's dying, and Michael Morbius shows up, and for some reason, they just start making out when she's dying, and don't know what happens. She bites his lip, or he bites her, or something, and a drop of blood spills into her mouth, which at that moment she's gonna turn into whatever he is, and she's gonna live. But we don't see that until the very end of the movie, which didn't surprise me at all, of course. But yes, and then your climax is essentially Morbius and Milo fighting. And the only way Morbius wins is by summoning an army of bats, and then he injects Milo with this like serum that puts him into like hematosis or some shit. Like it stops his blood from flowing, essentially kills him. And so that's the climax. Again, little things that don't make sense. If Morbius can control bats, wouldn't Milo also be able to control the bats? They have the same power set. Milo also killed their mentor, who I don't know if he's a mentor, but like the guy who took care of him as kids, and he continued to care for Milo. Milo ends up killing him, and he's like covered in blood, and Morbius finds him that way, and nothing, right? Like he's just sad. He's trying to help him, whatever, and like no, you don't see him transform his face or anything into like vampire Morbius. But like earlier in the movie, he's like in a bunker with Dr. Bancroft, who cuts her finger, has a little bit of blood. He's like 20 feet away, and you see his face start transforming, and he's like, "Yeah, I can control myself, but hey, you better cover that up." Finds his old caretaker just covered in blood, no reaction, no consistency there, and then. The really troubling parts of this movie are the post-credit scenes involving Vulture, which was never going to lead to anywhere, when he just shows up in this prison, and then also when he's like, "Oh, we should team up," like when he wants to team up with Morbius, and Morbius is like, "Yeah, I'm down," or whatever, and it's like, first of all, Morbius is portrayed as this not bad character, right? Like he's like an anti-hero. He's trying his best not to harm people. He's a doctor. He's not fully evil. He's not really evil at all, actually. He's pretty he's a pretty well-meaning individual who doesn't really want to hurt people or kill people. Whereas Vulture, I mean, he's just a straight-up bad guy. So I don't really get them trying to recruit Morbius for like this quote-unquote Sinister Six thing that they were trying to do. It doesn't really fit for me, but okay. Sure. It was just a very odd scene. The other thing too was, I think it's not a surprise, but it is something that fans would be bothered by, I think, is like, once again, in the trailer for Morbius, they have a graffiti of Spider-Man in the background, and it looks like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Could be Tobey's, but it looks like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. And even though we know this is what Sony does, they want you to get excited about Spider-Man in a movie where he won't even be in it. It's still like, there's no mention of him. There's no anything. I don't even remember seeing that graffiti in the actual movie. It's just something in the trailer to get you to want to go see a movie that then you're going to be disappointed by. He never said it's Morbin time, but he did say, "I am Venom," which he doesn't even fucking know who Venom is, I don't think. So very odd. Don't know where that came from. So that's something as well. And so Morbius, I enjoyed much more than Madame Web, but still not a great movie, and definitely nothing that makes you go, yeah, I'm excited for the future of Sony's Marvel's universe. But yeah, so that's that for those two. And listen, this is the marketing ground that Sony was built upon. This ambiguity of, will Spider-Man show up or won't he show up? Who knows, guys? We don't know. When they have no intention of ever having him show up, not only throwing him in the trailer, throwing a graffiti of him in the trailer for Morbius, not only the Madam Web trailer stuff where they frequently show the girls as Spider-Girls, but before all of that, the very first Venom movie, Ruben Fleischer said in an interview, he was asked directly, will Spider-Man show up in your movie? And he said, I know the answer to that, but I don't know if I'm allowed to say. Okay, let's examine that. If Spider-Man is in your movie, it makes sense to say that. Because, hey, I don't know. Sony maybe doesn't want people to know he's in my movie. If he's not in the movie, why would you say that? Why wouldn't you just say, no, he's not in the movie? There's only one reason not to say it. It's because you want people to think that there's a possibility he's in the movie, and they'll go buy tickets to go see the movie. And guess what? They did, and your movie was successful. And then it gave Sony this idea that anybody will go see a movie without Spider-Man in it simply because it's a Spider-Man adjacent movie. And guess what? That's a very false sense of security because none of their other movies have been successful. Morbius, Madam Web, Venom 2, and Venom 3, and Kraven. All box office failures. Why? Okay, and technically, maybe Venom 2 was in the box office failure. Who cares? They're not successful films because people stop caring when there's no Spider-Man. And technically, in Venom 2, Spider-Man's in the post-credit scene because Venom goes to the Marvel Universe in the MCU. Yeah, well, guess what? Nothing ever fucking came of that either. We thought maybe that was the time, the opportunity. And that's what they do. They feed you these little things. Hey, guys, maybe next time, maybe eventually. And now we know what we should have always known. They never had any intention of bringing Spider-Man into those movies, which is the main reason I think nobody actually cares. Like, the guy can come out and say, they're not bad movies. Well, if they weren't bad movies, even if Spider-Man's not in them, people would be more generous to them. People are less generous to them, not only because Spider-Man's not in them, but because they're boring, bland movies that don't inspire anything in you, that it's another movie made to help you keep the rights to this character. That's it. That's all it is. And fans see right through that, to be honest. So those are my thoughts on Madam Web and Morbius. Whenever Venom 3 and Kraven are on streaming, I'll watch those and talk about those as well. So anyway, share your thoughts. Click some buttons like comment, rate, review, subscribe. Do all those things, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you subscribe to the podcast version, whether you follow us anywhere else. Much appreciated, much love, and see you again soon. Bye.